Hi everybody, welcome back to Republic Airport on Long Island in New York. Republic Airport has a little bit of history. Uh, we parked at Nassau Flyers, which is a private flight school uh, that is actually similar to what their building looks like. And behind it, over here, is the Warbird Museum. And the Warbird Museum has been here for many, many years. And they actually fly almost all of the aircraft that are stored here. It's a little bit bigger than what you see on the map, but it is represented. There's an F-4 Phantom there, um, and we have some aircraft in the hangar as well. But normally on a holiday weekend, Labor Day, Memorial Day especially, they have an air show that flies out of this airbase. If you can see in the back here, there's a small tower, which is pretty cool that it's represented in X-Plane 11. That tower is an old World War II vintage tower. The main tower that operates the facility today is represented on the southeast corner of the airport. Okay, so what we did today, we're going to keep the weather clear for a change. Today was pretty lousy for real world weather. It's snowing here in New York on February 7th. Visibility's terrible, and we'll make it a more interesting flight than just being in the clouds at 600 feet and above. So what we'll do is we'll take a flight to Reagan International. It's a pretty short flight from Republic, and of course we'll use our trusty Vision Jet. So why don't we go inside, get things started up. Okay, very easy aircraft to start up. Again, if you want to practice navigation, once you learn the G1000, a similar system that's in Cirrus aircraft for navigation purposes, once you understand how to set it up, program it, etc., it's actually very intuitive aircraft to fly. This is a VisionJet G2 download. It's been modified, gives us auto throttle. We've spoken about some of the features, anti-icing. The most important feature, though, is the auto throttle. The default aircraft in X-Plane 11 does not have auto throttle. Okay, let's start her up. So, batteries. Turn on the nav lights. Parking brakes are on. Door is closed. I'm going to turn on the Pitot 2 Probe Heat just for a little bit, test it out. On a day like today, we're not going to have to worry too much. Barometric pressure 29.92. That will stay static for the remainder of this flight. We are not using Active Sky XP for today's flight. Maybe we'll get a little bit more scenery out of it. I do have global traffic, so you will see some general aviation and commercial aircraft throughout the flight. And that's it for the plugins for today. We did set up our Navigraph flight plan, so why don't we just go in and select that flight plan now. There we go. KFRG Republic to Reagan International. What I did notice with X-Plane, many of the flight plans actually plug in these 2 extra waypoints, which will take you way off course. So we fixed that quickly, but just by clearing those 2 extra waypoints. I'm not sure why that happens, if that is a Navigraph issue or an X-Plane 11.5 issue. But once you make the mistake once, take off thinking that you're going to hit a local waypoint and find yourself 50 miles off course, you quickly learn that those 2 waypoints have to be looked at, and it's a good idea anyway to take a look and make sure that your flight plan is set up appropriately. Okay, we are going to go into Reagan ILS runway 1. Already have that plugged in, so we won't have to worry about that later. And if it's not set up, if it's not a really long flight, I typically like to set up my approach and frequencies as much in advance. If we look at the procedure for this flight, the approach is already in. Again, beautiful thing about X-Plane 11.5 in Navigraph, it's already in as I set it up in Navigraph, the application. So the only thing we'll need to do when we get to the appropriate waypoint will be to activate that approach. Okay, so plug in our altitude. Let's say we go to 16,000 feet. We're using low altitude airways, which are airways at or below 18,000 feet. Make sure our transponder's on. Put it on altimeter. We'll fly VFR squawking today because we won't use the onboard air traffic control, and we are not flying VATSIM with today's flight. Okay. Auto throttle, have that set to 175 knots. That's typically my climb out speed in this aircraft. Let's just take a look. Left, take a look right. Set ourselves up for taxi. Okay, let's drop the flaps for takeoff. Again, not everybody does. I like to do this before I take off so I don't forget and end up with a very awkward takeoff, especially if the weather's a little rough. Okay, nice part about this aircraft is once we tap the brakes on the rudder pedals, we will be off the parking brake. Notice our light disengaged. Generator on. Strobe light. Land light. Fresh air. Again, if you haven't watched any of the other videos, I do try to simulate the cockpit of this aircraft with my flight simulator here at home using a CH Flight Stick Pro and the CH Throttle Pro, and it looks very similar to the joystick configuration and throttle inherent in this aircraft. I do have the Logitech yoke that I will use when I'm flying aircraft such as Cessna. Also have the throttle quadrant for that as well. But lately it's been everything Cirrus. And we're going to be taxiing to runway 14. Right where we left, you can see our to the left hand side there. Sorry to interrupt, that's the old World War II tower and hangar left. This airport used to be the site for Republic Fairchild or Fairchild Republic. Goes way back to World War II, there's old abandoned train tracks where they used to deliver aircraft parts and receive parts. That's all been abandoned, and this airport happens to be the home of the A-10 Warhawk. The A-10 is still in favor today for ground support, but is no longer manufactured here on Long Island. Not far away is Grumman's Bethpage plant, which also had a dedicated train track out to Calverton, Long Island. Manufacturing was primarily done in Bethpage, and that goes way back to World War II, up into and including the F-14, Tomcat, the A-6 Intruder, and the E-2C Hawkeye. I had many years growing up. My father worked for Grumman Aerospace for 35 years. He was on the Lunar Module Project, the F-14, the A-6, and the E-2C during his career as a draftsman. Now, it's called Republic Airport only, and there's a big shopping mall, as we can see here up on the right, known as Airport Plaza off of Route 110 in Farmingdale, New York. And this is, as you can see on the map, Long Island, New York, on the South Shore. And just throttle back a little bit. Active sky radar, which is on my other monitor, is showing clear for takeoff. Good idea to look anyway. And right about this point, we're going to activate auto throttle. And we're off. And I'm going to tap the brakes, stop the wheels from spinning, bring up our gear, start to trim it out a little bit, get the flaps up, watch the trim. And we'll engage autopilot, nav, vertical speed. I'm going to drop that vertical speed down a little bit, 1,700 feet per minute. The departure we're flying today is actually going to take us to the North Shore of Long Island, up and around Kennedy and LaGuardia Airport, as to avoid that traffic. We're actually flying D's 5 departure. And yes, it seems a little bit out of the way for most of you that are new, but if you're flying IFR and you're flying a jet, it is the safest way to depart in a very congested area like Long Island. So just to get you oriented, if we look out the right window, that's the east end of Long Island. Left window west of us, New York City. And that body of water ahead is Long Island Sound. And that is the Connecticut coastline. We are flying today with XP Realistic. What XP Realistic does for you, noticed on that takeoff, the ground shaking, gear noise, rattling in the cockpit during turbulence or when you're rolling on the runway. All adjustable features down to allowing for cockpit motion, normal breathing motion, and an occasional sneeze, which annoys me, so I shut every one of those settings off. However, it really makes a big difference. Flap noise, turbulence of the wings when you deploy flaps, if you overspeed, etc. They're great settings. It is an absolute must-have plugin. Right now we're headed northwest. Now that sounds counterintuitive to a flight to DC, but again we are flying the DEEZZ 5 departure. It's going to take us a little bit more to the northwest before we start our turn more to the south and then southwest into the Washington DC area. Take a look at some of the scenery. This is the Hudson River, Long Island Sound. And we look out our left window, kind of obscuring, but that's coming into view Kennedy Airport, and the water is closer towards our wing. And the partition between the windows is blocking where Manhattan would be. And if we look at our X-Plane 1000 or G1000, Garmin G1000, our next waypoint turn is in about 3 minutes and 15 seconds, and that will be a turn more towards the west. Okay, talking so much, forgot to turn off my landing light, and we're up above 10,000 feet. So what we're going to do here, throttle up a little bit. And that's just our alarm again, folks, telling us we're 1,000 feet away from our climb out altitude of 16,000 feet. We are leveling off here. You'll see the airspeed pick up a little bit. We'll get to our 215 knots. Okay, what you might have seen, we're about 6 seconds from our waypoint turn. See it there? And this is where we're going to keep it at cruise. A little high on the engine. Wouldn't necessarily do this in the real world, but I don't want to bore you with all of the flight in between. So we'll shake it out as quick as we can here. So looking at our map, as we discussed earlier, we took off out of Republic Airport, KFRG. To the east of that is Islip MacArthur Airport. There's JFK and LaGuardia. Newark is over here. And Teterboro, it's a pretty busy airspace for sure. And that's why we're still flying the departure, D's 5 departure keeps us clear of all of the landing and departing traffic from those airports. about 20 seconds out from our next waypoint, which will give us a more southerly turn. So we'll be going a little bit more south and a little bit west. So southwest. There we go. The only scenery modification we're flying with today is Orbix Terra Flora for X-Plane 11. And really all that does is give us a little bit more realistic tree coverage across the base scenery of X-Plane 11.5. It does make a nice difference. It gives you a little bit of contrast. Certainly not the scenery of the new Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, but I've said it 100 times. I want to fall in love with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, mostly because of the scenery, but it's not realistic, for me anyway, compared to X-Plane 11.5. Too many bugs in the avionics, strange scenery occurrences, blue taxiway lights popping up in the middle of the taxiway, ground crew that is always standing ridiculously close to the aircraft, dangerously close, and you can't move them out of the way, and you can't shut that on and off. So I am confident that someday Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 will be a fantastic flight simulator, but as of right now, if you want the realistic feeling of flying an aircraft, X-Plane 11.5, for me anyway, is the only way to go. At some point, I would do a comparison flight with the SR-22 from TorqueSim in X-Plane 11.5 versus the SR-22 in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Not even close. The TorqueSim model is flight training realistic, engine management realistic, down to taxiing where you need to use differential braking to taxi as opposed to rudder pedals. The Cirrus SR20 and SR22 front gear does not turn with the rudder pedals. In the real world, you have to use light taps on the brake, and light is important because you'll wear out your brakes quickly if you lean too heavily on them. In a real world SR20 or SR22. So we'll do a comparison video of that, and I'll let you see for yourself. Or drifting more to the southwest each time. I mean, this is really west-southwest. We're more west than we are south, for sure. But we are arcing in the correct direction, and believe it or not, we are still on our D5 departure. Current frame rate is at 55 frames per second, which is an impressive frame rate. Settings are all maxed out. Using Vulkan as the option for graphics in X-Plane 11 made a big difference. How the scenery loads just made a tremendous adjustment to how the scenery loads forward, so we don't see that blotchy, choppy scenery in front of us just magically appearing. Again, if you haven't watched the other videos, the computer system that we're currently using is a 3-monitor workstation. HP Omen 4K monitors, 16 gig of RAM. X-Plane is running off of a terabyte SD hard drive, and this is an i7 9th generation chip. Pretty much a off-the-shelf Asus Republic of Gaming PC. next waypoint, we will be officially out of our departure. About 5 or 6 minutes. Okay, folks, out the front window there, that river is the Delaware River. And one of the great features of Navigraph, which I'm not sure a lot of people use, once you've set up your flight plan, you can overlay it on a world map, which shows more street level, city level map coverage than high altitude or low altitude airways. Definitely nice to follow along, know where you are. And we're 2 minutes out from our next waypoint. Certainly will get us more due south. And that is our leaving the departure of the New York airspace, New York airports, New Jersey airports. Again, that's D's 5. And 5 seconds, 3 until our turn to the south. Again, this will be almost due south. still the Delaware River out our left window. And as you can see, for folks that don't fly X-Plane 11, the parachute is the hallmark of the Cirrus aircraft. SR-20, SR-22 as well. Fully deployable in X-Plane 11 in the Vision Jet, and I have yet to do it. Maybe one day I'll do it. Quick video, show you what that looks like. At this point in the flight, we should set our first descent altitude. It's 5,000 feet. We won't start descending yet, but you can preset that descent. When you're ready, I'll typically go with vertical speed. Manually set my vertical speed and my descent auto throttle for a smooth descent. Just to show you, I'll drag in Navigraph. We're going to start descending pretty soon. There's our departure point from Republic Airport. That was our long departure procedure. As you can see, we're starting to come into the leg. That's Cape May, New Jersey. We're starting to come to the area where we'll start our descent in for our ILS approach into Reagan. We're going to go into ILS runway 1. Again, beautiful part about Navigraph. We can change the lucency here of how we'll come into our our approach to ILS runway 1, which we will set our heading bug is actually course 006. And we should hit our final approach into the runway at 1,600 feet. So at this waypoint, we'll be at 2,500 feet, and we'll capture at about 1,600 feet. And because it's clear skies, I'll take it off of autopilot, fly it in to final. Okay, let's start our descent. Throttle back, vertical speed. Now as I start that vertical speed adjustment on my throttle quadrant, we'll still slow down to what we set orbital throttle to. And we'll take it nice, smooth to 5,000 feet. Okay, heading bug is 006. That will be the final runway heading. And that's a good idea to set this up so that when you do activate your approach on the autopilot down here, we know that we've captured. Obviously, we'll see this change to green for that nav 1 approach. But confirm we're aligned with our heading bug. The only other thing we'll start to set up for, we'll go to our procedure page, leave activate approach open. That reminds me, out of the corner of my eye, that I need to activate this approach to capture the ILS. Off to the right here, this is Baltimore. That is the heart of downtown Baltimore. Thousand feet from level off. Throttling up as we level off. And we can bring our airspeed up a little bit if we like. Notice the shaking as we throttle up a little bit. That is XP realistic. It is not default X-Plane 11.5. But again, that's the beauty of X-Plane 11.5 and all of these flight simulators. The flight simulator itself is inexpensive. It's all the little plugins that add up to a lot, but well worth it for the realistic experience. Waypoint takes us again to that southerly direction as we start to line up for our final descent into Reagan International. Now is set my next altitude setting. We're going to go to 2,500 feet. Just not quite yet. Again, the preset, all I have to do is go to my vertical speed, set my vertical speed manually, throttle adjust as needed. Throttle back to 175 this time. Vertical speed enabled. And start descending it. Feet from our target altitude. Throttle up as we level off. Okay, let's go ahead and set up our next target altitude, which 1,600 feet. Again, clear day, sunny skies, no weather, altimeter is good. bring Navigraph in, see where we are on our approach. So there we are. We're going to be making a turn a little bit more towards the west, and then a much sharper turn so that we can capture at Katrin our final approach into Reagan International. Again, we have our nav aid set. Nav 1 is set to 109.9, heading bug 006. Let's get this out of the way. Just dragging it over to my other monitor. And 5 seconds before the next turn. This will be a little bit steeper. And one more steep turn after that. And we'll start slowing the airplane down. Thanks for hanging in there. This should be a nice approach. We should not have any weather issues whatsoever. Alright, go down 160 knots. Just keeps me above initial flap setting. This aircraft certainly likes to remind you deploy flaps, deploy gear. At about 150 knots, it'll start warning me about first flap setting. And we're about 2.5 minutes out from our next waypoint. Steep turn. And we'll start preparing the aircraft for landing. Okay, now we're going to activate our first flap setting. Notice the shaking. There's our flap warning just as we approached 120 knots. We're going to drop the gear at this point. And just keeping an eye on that approach. Making a subtle turn to 006. We'll watch our altitude bug when that comes alive. Start getting us down to 1,600 feet. And 10 seconds from final approach. Okay, approach is active. So yeah, we changed to green. That is our nav1 CDI. Just incrementally slow down the aircraft. Perfect timing at 1,600 feet. We will begin to see our altitude bug. As soon as that starts to move, I will set the approach on the autopilot. And it looks like we'll get a quick capture. We've got capture. Activate the approach. Final flap setting. As soon as we start to descend, I'll throttle back to about 85, 90 knots. Our descent. There we go. No turbulence, so let's go to 85 knots. Nice, slow descent into final. Double check, gear is down, flaps down, altimeter set. have our runway in sight. Again, I get to 500 feet. That's when I'll disable the auto throttle. Shortly after that, I will disable the autopilot and we'll take it in the rest of the way manually. Do it right, we should touch down at or about 75, maybe 80 knots. Try to keep it slow. Well, folks, thank you for flying Vision Jet Airways. 500 feet, auto throttle off. Ready, autopilot off. You will hear the bells when I click it off. Feet. Autopilot off.
Caution.
Throttling back. Little adjustment. Touch the nose down and brakes. All right, we are down. Just the view a little bit better for taxi. Going to go to general aviation parking. Once I get off the runway here, I'll stop at the hold short and show you where we're going to be taxiing to. You can pull our flaps up. To the left here. Global Traffic has aircraft set up here. And we have an aircraft taxi. It's an American Airlines aircraft. I'm going to throttle back and we'll hold short. Alrighty. Let's bring in Navigraph. No rush at this point. We're not being chased by air traffic control. Although we do have to do that, don't we? Alright, so in Navigraph, what we're going to do is go to our taxi charts. Ford, Reagan, Ronald Reagan, Airport. Take a look at where we are. All right, we want to park over at General Aviation Terminal. There should be an open hangar here for us to park in. We're going to take taxiway Kilo all the way around. Pretty straightforward, right? Again, when you don't know an airport, Navigraph, having these charts all on board, real-time moving maps. There's no other way to do it, folks. I know a lot of people try little nav map and some of the other apps out there, but sooner or later, if you're going to do this for real serious simulation purposes, you're going to have to bite the bullet and do a Navigraph subscription. Sorry, just my opinion. All right, let's get going. Here's Kilo. See it on the ground. There's an aircraft taking off on our left. That's global traffic. That is not X-Plane 11.5. You can see up ahead we've got some traffic lined up. Follow this to the right, making this little turn. Right turn up ahead. There's some aircraft taking off. There is our hangar straight away. Terminals are pretty busy today. Oh, traffic ahead. Get the strobes off. And our hangar on the right. Okay. Throttle down. Bucky brakes on. Probe heat off. I like to clean up the G1000. Go to flight plan, menu. Just clean that up. Flight plan's gone. Good. I like to set my throttle for the next time I'm ready to take off, because it does remember. Just landing lights off. Generators off. Ignition off. Open the door. We are powered off. Give you a quick external view. There is our Cirrus Vision Jet. True to form. You don't see these around too often. Thanks everybody for watching, and VATSIM flight coming up soon. Thanks again. Have a good night. Bye-bye.